I can't handle being with my wife much longer. Am I stuck, or is there still a possibility of something better? Sorry for the long post. Also, not considering self-harm, just really discouraged and not sure what to do. I don't know how much longer I can do this. I hate my life. I'm not ready to stop living or anything, but I want out of this life I'm in. I fell in love with a girl when I was 20. I gave her everything I possibly could. I didn't plan to get married, but I married her. I didn't really want to have kids, at least not at the age when we did, but she wanted to, so we did. I didn't want to stay in this part of the country, but she didn't want to be more than a couple of hours away from her mom and sister, so we stayed here. But the last few years, I just haven't been able to keep giving her all she wants. I neglected myself for 20 years to give her what I could. I seriously can't do that any longer. I've either been in school and worked 2 jobs, or at least had a side hustle the whole time. I was exhausted, and my health was going to hell, and my mental health was completely broken when I finally hit bottom last summer. I stepped into a really stressful job in 2016 that ate me alive until 2019. During that time we took a couple of big family trips and a couple of smaller trips, but when I knew I'd be losing my job soon, I tightened down on spending. I took a small payout and picked up my side hustles until I landed a new job, and we never went without the equivalent of one of my full-time paychecks, but money was still tight because our insurance plan switched to her employer's plan and out deductible reset in the middle of the year and that kind of stuff. Last year, my dad had to have major surgery, so I spent a lot of time taking care of him, but her sister had a work trip, and she wanted to go, so she did, and they hung out with tons of people and enjoyed their trip, but a couple of days after so got back, she tested positive for COVID, then I got it a few days later. I got really sick, part of which was probably due to how poor my health had gotten due to stress, not taking care of myself, not having time to exercise or decompress in any way since I'd only gone to work and straight home for over a year at that point, except when I was on the road as a caregiver, sleeping on my parents' couch, and trying to maintain their household and ours at the same time. After I got back to a reasonable measure of health, I decided it was time to focus on me. I've started back at the gym and done really well. I updated my wardrobe for the first time in about 5 years. I started reading and picked up drawing again as a hobby, and I even got a promotion and pay raise. But the more time I spend taking care of myself, she only acts more resentful toward me. She acts like my gym membership and new clothes are the reason we're broke. We're not broke, we just have some credit card debt due to excessive spending mainly on home improvement projects. We could even pay it off, but she doesn't want to take the money out of our savings. She acts like I try to avoid spending time with the kids even though they're teenagers now and primarily want to be left alone. I think what she means is she gets angry that she has to do more of the school pickup and kids appointments even though I work full-time, and she works 15 to 20 hours a week, and she even has the kids thinking I'm too busy for them now because of that. For the record, I have not missed a single school meeting, open house, or event this year, and I still make plenty of drop-off/pickup runs and appointments. My job is flexible enough that I often am able to leave the office and go to the gym during the day so that it doesn't cut into my family time, and I've got a good enough salary, and my side hustles are almost completely passive income, so I usually only work on them when I literally have nothing else to do. I get most of that done while I'm waiting on one of my kids at a weekly appointment he has. I've come to accept that nothing I do will ever be good enough. I'm terribly depressed and terribly lonely. I don't have many friends because I can't get close to anyone without them seeing how miserable I am, and I don't want people to think she's a bad person. I really only have my best friend from childhood, and he's given me some pretty hard truths to think about, but he also understands why I don't make any significant changes. I don't want to leave because I know I'd lose my kids, but it's so bad now that I'm not sure what good I even am to them, and then on top of that, I know she is basically turning them against me as it is. I'm almost to the point that I'd consider walking away in hopes that they'll eventually understand what had been going on and understand why I had to go, even if it means I have a smaller role in their lives for now. For the record, I'm not worried about leaving them with her. Parenting is hard, but I do think she's a good mom, all things considered. And as pathetic as it may sound, I don't want to lose her either. I just wish I could have less of a one-sided relationship because I'm not sure I can keep going like this without getting the kind of love and support back that I need. There is no intimacy. She gets annoyed if I touch her in any way while we're in bed, but insists that we continue to share a bed instead of letting me sleep in the guest room. Sometimes she'll be close to the center of the bed and have a pillow between us, so I have to drape my arm across the pillow, and she gets mad and says that I'm trying to grope her. This summer, we had a particularly stressful week while our kids were out of town, because a storm did some property damage to our home, and I was overwhelmed to a point that I was just trying to get through several days of working in 100+ degree heat cleaning up the debris, and I snapped at her after a couple of days off being told I was doing practically everything wrong. That's when she said I was being abusive because of the way I was taking my anger out on her. For the record, I have never even come close to being physically violent. The worst thing I did was raise my voice when I was completely overwhelmed and basically breaking down from the stress and pressure and exhaustion. I'm still trying to be a good husband, but it just seems useless, and I'm really ready to give up. I've been in therapy, we even did couples therapy earlier this year when I said I was ready to move into the guest room. I'm not perfect, not by a long shot, but I try to be good. But I don't know how much longer I can keep going like this because nothing is good enough. I've spent a good part of this weekend in bed because I'm just overwhelmed with it all, so I've been either working in the yard or hanging out with my kids or in here trying to figure out what I can possibly do to make things better. Now I've got to finish laundry and grocery shopping this evening and get ready for the week. I don't know what kind of advice I expect to hear back. Maybe I just needed to get it off my chest before it sinks me. Comment. It's time for you to leave. Can you imagine another year of this? 5 years of this? You need to get out of this relationship. You are teaching your kids that it is okay to stay in a miserable relationship. Don't be that guy. Contact a lawyer and find out your options. You'll have a sense of relief that will set your heart free. If you want to try to make it work, then individual therapy for you and couples counseling as well. Else call an attorney and make an exit plan. You talked a lot about how you feel, and that's fair. But part of our job as parents is to demonstrate healthy relationships for our kids to model. Even if you are not fighting in front of them, they pick up on the tension. Kids who grow up in this dysfunction are more prone to anxiety and depression issues. Fix it or get out. Looks like you've tried the therapy route to little avail. Although maybe just for yourself to help you cope. Could you make a divorce work financially? Appears to be your only option. Imo. Sucks, man, I'm sorry. Next story 2. I 35M need advice on building a relationship with my friend future husband 28M. So here's the background. I started dating a woman I will call Bree about 10 years ago, and in that time I picked up her friends. Which for me is great. I have major trust issues involving men. So anyways, now to the friend I will call Dawn gets really defensive whenever she doesn't want to talk about something that might cause conflict. Basically she won't tell you she is mad, and if you ask she gets defensive. For the most part this is annoying, but hasn't been a friendship ending problem for me and Bree. Well, Dawn introduced her BF Henry to the group back in December 2021. Anyways, I make a real concerted effort to make Henry feel welcome. I'm of course not very good at it, and thankfully when you put Bree and Dawn in a room I will rarely get a word in. It's great, and Henry seems to be able to join in the conversations. So I do my normal thing of just waiting until Bree and Dawn realize I have been trying to talk. Anyways, we meet him twice again, once at his house, yay to doubling up the anti-anxiety meds and doing everything I can to make myself feel prepared and safe. I have never discussed this issue with Bree. At this meeting I did pretty good. I was encouraging and joking like my family does when you bring around the date. In this case he stated something about her being safe with him, and Dawn joked about it, and so I joked about knowing a great place to hide the body. Henry laughed, and I made it verbally clear that I was joking in addition to smiling and laughing. Anyways, we meet like 3 months later. It took both Bree and I to get that to happen. Since Dawn has been dating Henry we have went from once a week to once in 3 months if we push for it. In fact, we didn't see Dawn until like May of this year when we pushed. This includes trying to arrange for birthdays and such, so we have seen Henry like 3 times since they started dating. Well, by this point Bree is trying to make room for me to join in conversations. So I think I did really well engaging Henry in more conversations. Anyways, 2022 is ending and we have gotten Dawn to come to a Christmas party, but Henry was busy so didn't come. A gift from my family is occasionally people are easy to read or predict. My one cousin uses this at flea markets to fleece people, another used it to abuse people until he went to jail. Anyways, I texted Bree he was going to propose. I was correct by the way, and so I expressed happiness. We found out like 2 weeks after the proposal. I didn't say anything to Dawn about what Henry was planning either. It would have been rude to take that moment away. Well, this whole year Henry has been too busy to show up and Dawn wasn't available around her birthday. Not a big deal, we understood. But at this point we have joked Henry is dead, and won't it be interesting to see a zombie say I do? We don't make these jokes in front of Dawn because again it would hurt her, and every time we have asked about him coming she has gotten defensive saying he is working. Well, Dawn asked Bree to be a bridesmaid, which cool, they have been friends for decades and I was excited for them. But in the back of my head I'm worried that the only reason I'm being invited to the wedding is because of Bree. Bree and I have talked about this and she was able to get Dawn to say that Henry doesn't feel welcomed around me. But she reiterated that wasn't why he was Mia at the parties. So I asked Bree if I should still go. After all, she was going to be around the couple a lot and I didn't want this day to be for Henry a day where he was around someone who makes him feel uncomfortable. I tried to pare this down, I may have failed.